drivers that can handle oversteer. Am I scared? Yes. Hello and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel. Now recently I made a video comparing the new G87 generation BMW M2 with the current Audi RS3, and it was a surprisingly close run thing, bearing in mind that the M2 is based on the hardcore M3 and M4 platform, so it wasn't really a fair fight. There is, however, another M car that Audi Sport most definitely had in their sights when they were developing the current RS3, because it's got similar power, it's the same width, it's the same weight, and it's even got a similar price tag. And just like the RS3, it can drift for Germany, but doesn't need a gimmicky drift mode. It is, of course, the F87 generation BMW M2 Competition. So in today's video, I'm going to share my opinions on how I think it compares with the current M2 and why right now is the time that you should buy one. Now, before we get started, I'd just like to remind you guys how you can support the channel. The easiest way to do that is simply to subscribe. Also, if you like the look of this BMW M2 Competition, then it is currently for sale at APS Specialist Vehicles in Brackley. It actually belonged to one of my old customers. They bought it from a BMW main dealership. It's got full BMW main dealer service history. It's done just 12,000 miles, and it's got the important Plus Pack and a Comfort Pack, and it's in amazingly good condition. They are actually looking to replace it with a new or nearly new Mk8 GTI Clubsport. So if you've got a 2023 car with really low mileage, like under 1,000, or you've ordered one that's arriving at the dealers soon, but you don't really want to take delivery of it, doesn't matter where in the UK you are, get in touch with me directly, Andrew at volkswizard.co.uk. They do have a specific spec that they're looking for, which I'll list in the description of this video. Okay, now let's have a look at the M2 Competition's numbers, starting with its price. So this M2 Comp with a DCT auto gearbox was £54,505 on the road back in 2020. £2,645 of that was a premium for the automatic gearbox. So back then they charged you more for the auto and the manual was standard, not like the M2 today, where it's the other way around. So that's roughly £10,000 cheaper than the M2 is today, but it's not as simple as that, because to equalise the specs, you really need to have the Comfort and Plus packs on the M2 Comp, and they add just over £3,000 to that price. The good news is that because a lot of that value is retained when the car hits the used market, they don't actually add an awful lot to the monthly PCP payment. So the £1,800 Comfort Pack gives you electric memory seats, reverse camera, comfort access, which is basically keyless entry, wireless phone charging and a Wi-Fi hotspot, electric folding mirrors. Then for £1,245, the Plus Pack gives you these lovely smoked alloys, which are the same as the standard ones, just with a smoked lacquer. Much harder to retrofit are the heated seats, the Harman Kardon speakers, and the adaptive LED headlights. Just normal LED headlights are standard, and you get this sun protection glass. The only other key options was a big brake package, which is probably recommended if you're going to go on track, and also there was a sunroof as well. Performance-wise, the M2 Comp produces 410 horsepower and 550 Newton meters of torque. The new M2 is 460 horsepower, so it wins convincingly there, but it's got the same amount of torque, and it's quite a bit heavier. We'll talk about that in a second. 0 to 62 time is 4.2 seconds for the DCT and 4.4 for the manual. That's there or thereabouts the same as the current M2. Top speed is 155 miles an hour, but just like the new M2, you can pay a couple of grand more and it will be raised to 174 miles an hour, and you get some driver training. Now, if that's purely related to the increased top speed, maybe they just say, yeah, just put your foot down and keep it there for longer. Fuel consumption wise, 29 mpg on the combined cycle, which is pretty similar to the current car. Weight wise, this M2 with the DCT box is 1,575 kilograms. That's 25 kilograms more than the manual, and that's about 150 kilograms lighter than the current M2. Okay, now let's have a good look around the outside of this beautiful M2 Competition. Now, I didn't really mind the looks of the new M2, but there's no escaping the fact that it takes a bit of time to get used to, and if you photograph it from certain angles, it can look pretty terrible with the older car. It looks good all the time and from every angle. It's just a nice piece of unchallenging, classic, cohesive BMW design. Does it look a little bit dated now? Well, yeah, a little bit, though I think the M2's looking a bit fresher than the models lower down the range. Now, I love the pumped up look. So we've got flared arches. They're not as obviously flared as those on the new car, but they're still distinctly broader than the standard cars. And when you see them on the road, a bit like an RS6 really, you can't mistake them. Now, compared to the new M2, the M2 Comp is 8 centimetres narrower across the mirrors. That may not sound like a lot, but if you're driving on a country road with SUVs thundering the other way, it could be the difference between your mirror staying on or not. Now, there was a range of metallic paints which were no-cost options. You could have this lovely Long Beach blue, or you could have metallic black, metallic orange, which I'm a big fan of actually, or a silver. There was also a non-metallic white. Now, we've got a lot of black on this car, so there's no chrome on it at all. We've got a black kidney grille with these double slats. We've got LED headlights as standard, but this car, having the Plus pack, has got the adaptive headlights. The wheels are what I think are the classic BBS style. I love modern takes on that lattice design, and these ones are in the spokes finish, though I'm sure with a bit of brake dust the standard wheels would look exactly the same. They're 19-inch all round, but at the front they're 9 inches wide, and you've got a 245 35 19 tyre. At the back you've got a 10-inch wheel with a 265 35 19 tyre. Now, this car's got the standard brakes, but you can pay £1,350 for the big brake kit. You can spot the big brake cars because they've got silver calipers, and they're 6 piston at the front, 4 at the back with that kit. We have got the M trademark mirrors called double arm mirrors that improve the aerodynamics. There's loads of this black shadow line, gloss black everywhere, that looks really expensive. Then at the back, which is the worst angle of the new car, even though it's not that different to the new car, because it's not as blocky, it's a lot smoother. It works really well. I don't think there's a bad angle here. So we've got quad exhausts and with black tips. We've got the vertical reflector like we have on the new car. We've got the M2 in black, but the Competition picked out in white, or is that silver? Tiny little spoiler there. But overall, yeah, great looking car. It's got that sort of big arch at the rear, long bonnet look that never really dates. Okay, before we have a look inside, let's just have a quick look at the M2 Comp's key. Now, unlike the new model, there's nothing M specific about it, but it's a nice quality key. But if you've got the comfort pack, you won't be using it much anyway, because that comes with keyless entry, which is pretty clever. So if you want to lock the car, press that, and then if you want to open it, do that. This car is based on the 1 Series or 2 Series, so the lowest model in the BMW range, unlike the new M2, which is effectively a 3 Series inside M3, M4. And I guess you can tell the quality of the plastics isn't brilliant, but overall it's not bad. And if you're buying a base M1 Series and you had this quality of plastic and carpet, well, you'd be in a better place than somebody buying the equivalent A3. So we've got some, not brilliant plastic up to the top of the door, but in here we've got some fake leather, some blue stitching, and we've got some Alcantara as well. The window switches, like on the new car, are a little bit flimsy. There's a chrome bar there that brightens things up. We've got folding mirrors as part of the comfort pack. We've got this open pore carbon fibre effect trim, which doesn't look that bad. I think it's better than the bits in the new RS3, which ironically has got better carbon under the bonnet where you can't see it. We've got Harman Kardon speakers as well, which is part of one of the packs. The carpet quality is certainly better than in the current A3 and Golf, and the floor mat's really good with contrast stitching as well. This plastic's okay down here. Beautiful sill protector there with M2 Competition. And then we've got electric seats, which are part of the comfort pack. And they do go pretty low. Often the motors make it hard for them to go low. Got lumbar adjustment as well, memory function, and they come with airbags. I didn't get to see the standard seats in the new M2, but they're probably very similar to these. These are okay. Again, we've got a contrast stitch, some leather here, a bit of blue detailing in there, M2 badge there, fixed headrest. They're not particularly bolstered at all, really. They just look like normal seats, which is surprising, but I'm sure they're really easy to live with. Right, let's get inside and have a closer look at the dashboard and steering wheel. Firstly, I just want to talk about a little detail that is actually quite important. So in this seatbelt, we've got light blue, dark blue, red, which are the M stripes. And it symbolises the attention to detail M give to their cars. With the RS3, you just have black seatbelts. There's no option to spec anything different. Same with the Golf R, same with the Mk8 Golf GTIs, including the Clubsport. So come on, Volkswagen, give us some colour in our seatbelts. It can't be that hard. There are people that retrofit them, but I'm not sure about having seatbelts that are retrofitted, considering how important they are when it comes to safety. Anyway, in here, it's all very classic BMW. We do have a screen, which I will fire up by pressing the red, M-specific red start button, which is brilliant, but I don't know how you're meant to see that because it's hidden by the chunky steering wheel, the paddles, this massive stalk as well. So we have got normal climate control, which will be familiar to everybody. Got some presets on there for the audio. We've got some air vents here, which feel good. Nice tips on them and some other controls on there. And we've got this screen that doesn't pop up, and it's a bit of a funny shape, being kind of wider than it is taller, but it's actually quite good. And what surprised me, that even though we have the iDrive on this quite old platform car, all this is touchscreen as well. So yeah, it's a very intuitive car to drive. Again, we don't need to spend time learning this car. It's good to go from the off. We have got analog dials, but they seem to be in a digital format. So TFT screens, you can see the little needles still sat there. When you fire them up, they do that. I'm sure there's some configuration available. What I'd really like is a digital speed display, which must be possible somehow. But yeah, M2 specific rev counter, and there's M2 startup screens on the infotainment as well. But actually not an awful lot else really. We've got M on the steering wheel, and we've got M on the gear knob. Got some more open pore carbon fibre, which does look good. Yeah, plastic quality is good, and we've got either probably a fake stitch, but actually does look real, going across the dash to here. So that's quite impressive. Yeah, it's nice. Paddles, I'm not sure they are metal. Are they cold? They are a bit. They've got a nice feel to them, and the action on them is really nice as well. So definitely a step up on the Volkswagen Group bits. Now this car has got Apple CarPlay, but it was retrofitted by the last owner. I think it just missed it being standard, because I think it came in 2020 bills, and it's probably like a few weeks off that. But when they had it retrofitted, they also had it widescreen as well, which is really nice to use. And again, it's touchscreen, which just seems a bit weird, but yeah, brilliant. Now, unlike the new model manual, everything seems to be in roughly the right place here. The brake pedal, which is here, with my right foot there, is slightly off centre, but not massively so. And we don't have a clutch to worry about, so that's fine. And then we've got the accelerator pedal there. We haven't got stainless pedals, which I think is actually quite surprising. But anyway, it feels perfectly natural to drive, unlike the new M2 with the manual gearbox. I'd love to drive the auto version, see how that compares. Hopefully it'll feel like this. We've also got normal seats. There's no option to upgrade these seats, which again is a bit weird because, as I said earlier, they are a bit flat, but they work. We'll lift the seat up, pull it forward with that lever there, and you can move it back and forth with this button using the electric adjustment. And it doesn't look too bad once you're in there, but it's the getting in and out that could be the problem. This actually looks better than in the new M2, which I got stuck in. I'll go on, let's see if I get stuck in this one as well. So I can go in forwards, which I couldn't in the M2. That's very interesting. And in here, yeah, similar sort of thing. My hair's on the headliner, looking at the B-pillar. I best push this seat back. Let's see if it comes back automatically. Not sure it will. probably about my driving position. We've got cutouts in the seat as well, so that's good. I feel really claustrophobic with this right here now, but at least I can look out here where there's a good bit of space, although the infotainment screen is blocking my view out the windscreen a bit and the mirror doesn't leave an awful lot of gap there. But yeah, it's okay in here. I just wouldn't want to spend that long, but it's fine if you're coming back from the pub. For example, all right, let's see if I can get out this time without getting stuck. But so far, that feels better. The new M2's got automatic movement of the seat to allow rear passengers out, but I don't think it goes this far out. So actually, interestingly, the smaller car is easier to get out of from the back seats. Very odd. Quick look in the boot then. So the release under there, that's the rear view camera, just like on the new car, which again gets dirty quite easily. 390 litres, so it's a good size. You can fold the rear seats flat, though unlike the new car, we've only got 40-60 folding. And obviously compared to a hatchback, you're restricted in the height of the items you can put in there. Down here we've got the battery, tyre repair kit, luggage net. Okay, now let's have a look under the bonnet. And BMWs have this sort of very logical system of pulling the bonnet once to release the first bit and then again to release the catch. There's no fumbling needed under the bonnet. Just put your hand in and lift it up. So there we have the S55 engine, which is pretty much identical to that in the M3 M4 at the time, 410 horsepower, 550 newton meters of torque, and in this case paired to a 7-speed DCT dual clutch transmission. What's very impressive is this carbon fibre strut brace, which we didn't have on the previous M2 because we didn't have such a potent engine. This car needs it to stiffen up the front end. It's not there just to look good. As you can see, pretty much as with the new M2, the engine sort of starts at the front axle and works its way backwards, and that improves the balance of the car. So the new M2's, I don't know how it does it, but it's got 50-50 front and rear weight distribution. This car's 53 front, 47 back. While it all sounds very impressive, let's now go and see how all that translates into how the M2 performs on the road. Well, it's great to be finally driving a BMW M2 Competition myself after reading all those amazing reviews. So what we want to find out today is, yes, we know in the hands of a driving god the M2 is an amazing tool, but what's it like being driven by a typical owner? Because I know that there aren't that many drivers that can handle oversteer. And I wasn't even trying then, blimey. It's not that cold, it's 9.5 degrees, we've got good Pilot Sport 4S's all around. It is a little bit greasy. We're in sport mode, which isn't everything backed off. It is a bit more aggressive than efficient, but it's not the Lariat Sport Plus, and you can pick and mix. Or we've got the M1 and the M2 buttons on the steering wheel, so you can configure those how you want. But if you just use the set mode, you can change the steering wheel weight, the traction control, and your gear shift ferocity with this button here. I tend to start using the paddles. They're nice to use. Like I said earlier, they're a nice shape and the action on them is lovely. Driving position's brilliant. Pedal placement feels totally natural. It's a lot less scarier car than the new one because, well, I should have really driven an auto, but it's a long story how I got a manual. It also feels that little bit smaller. It's not a lot, but it's enough, and I just feel more relaxed. It's more of the size of the car I'm used to. Like the new M2, it's quite twitchy on the rear end, but you just have to learn to drive that. I'm sure you can adapt. If you've come out of a four-wheel drive Audi, for example, it must be interesting. And I think, like in the new M2, learning how the car works will be a joy. If you hop into an RS3, you can drive it pretty much flat out from the off. Brilliant if you've just stolen it, but with this car it's going to take a bit of learning. Okay, let's talk. Wow, So twin turbo, straight six, makes a decent noise. There is some fakery, but if that's fake, it's pretty convincing. Now there's been a lot said about the ride quality of the original M2 and the M2 Comp, and whilst things have changed, like the bushes have got stiffer on the Comp, the actual, I think, springs and dampers are the same. They're passive dampers. There's no comfort mode or anything like that. It is what it is. And actually, I don't think it's too bad. Now the new M2 was quite stiff in its comfort mode, simply because it's got so much weight to manage. We're about 10% lighter in this car, and I'd say it doesn't feel an awful lot busier than the M2, new M2 in comfort mode. So yes, it's undoubtedly firm, and if we go over these cat's eyes, they do thump through, but it's not by any means terrible. And actually, it's kind of refreshing to have a car that's in one damper mode all the time, because you know what you're going to get, and it makes the engineers work that little bit harder to find a happy balance. Flipping hell. Just then you could feel the outside rear tyre overspeeding. We've got an electronic differential, which I'm sure will come in useful if you really want to exploit the rear drive chassis. Okay, now I want to take it on to my usual test route to feel how it flows through a tricky section of corners. Am I scared? Yes. Okay, before we go for it, it's probably just worth pointing out this car's got a traditional handbrake, which just seems a bit weird in a 2020 car. Even like the Seat Leon, which started off Mark III with a manual handbrake and moved to electric parking brake by the time we got to 2020. But anyway, it might be useful for getting the back end out. But from what I've seen already, you don't need a handbrake to do that. So the engine, wow, it's just so torquey. It likes to rev. Again, I'm a bit scared of going too high up the rev band, because there's a lot of performance and not a lot of grip. So into these corners now, you just got to trust the car's inherent balance. As long as you keep off the loud pedal, with all that weight balance and big tyres, it should corner really, really nicely. Steering's very direct. I mean, this is a horrible corner with a big tree there if you get it wrong. And it will push into understeer initially, and then you just correct it when you get on the gas. It's got so much torque though, you do not have to be driving it hard to get the most out of it. And that's good and bad, because the torque is there so you can just waft along, but then it's very easy to spin up the back wheels. We've got the M differential, which helps, but just in these conditions, a bit of restraint is probably your best friend. Just like the new M2, there's a lot to learn with this old M2 Competition, but it's going to be a lot of fun to work out how you can get to grips with this car. Now, I do feel that I might have been preaching to the converted with this video, because you probably already knew that the M2 Competition is an incredible driver's car, thanks to people like Evo magazine, who described it as one of the most entertaining coupes money can buy, something they haven't said about the new M2, which didn't even make it to this year's Evo Car of the Year shortlist. But as with the new M2, it still takes a lot of skill to exploit the M2 Competition's rear-wheel drive chassis to the fullest. The only difference is, because it's lighter and smaller, it's not as daunting as it is in the newer car. So if all this sounds very, very tempting, then the good news is that whilst the M2 Competition had been subject to the unprecedented price rises we'd seen in the UK's used market over the past couple of years, which has affected nearly every make and model, it's now subject to an unprecedented price correction, which means it's never been cheaper to buy one. Currently, there are 233 cars for sale on UK's Auto Trader website, and it's not unusual to see over 10% having been wiped off their prices. So now you can buy a good M2 Competition for about £30,000, and you can buy one of the best, a late model low miler from a BMW main dealership for about £40,000. Now, for some context, that will just about get you into a Porsche Cayman GTS, which is a lot older and slower, but that's the price you pay for the Porsche badge, or it can get you into a previous generation RS3, which is a great car, but it can't hold a candle to the M2 Comp dynamically. Me personally, I'd probably go for the Cayman because I prefer the way the naturally aspirated engine delivers its torque to the rear axle, and it also sounds better being naturally aspirated and not having a petrol particulate filter. But if you want performance, poise and practicality, then it has to be the F87 generation BMW M2 Competition, which in my opinion does a better job of being an M car than the bulky new model. As ever guys, thanks for watching this Volkswagen video. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, and I'll see you for the next one very soon. And if you, like me, are tempted by this M2 Competition, then check out apsspecialistvehicles.co.uk.